What is going on, everyone? My name's Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today it's Game Week 25 preview. So as always, I've gone to Twitter and YouTube to ask for your kind of questions and topics, and a lot of stuff came back that was very similar. So wildcards, Mane, Jamie Vardy, what to do there, stuff like that. So going to go through all that, including captaincy. Did want to say this video has been sponsored once again by OneFootball. So if you haven't already checked them out, link in the description below will take you straight through to where you need to be, or you can just search OneFootball on the Android and iOS stores. All your football news, lineup news, team news, live scores, all that stuff you need as an FPL manager. So if you've not already given it a go, it's completely free. Click the link below and try it out. So let's talk about wildcards. It came up quite a lot in the kind of replies that I had this week. A lot of people thinking about it, maybe already got it activated. I'm not going to do a draft video in this video because it will just go on for too long, but I might do a separate one later on in the week. So keep an eye out for that. If I've got enough time, I'll do a quick wildcard draft video. But let's talk about wildcards in general right now. Should you use them or should you not? That's, I think, what the situation that a lot of people are in, and it's a difficult thing to answer, and it always is. Every single year people ask, should I use it this week, should I use it next week, etc. And without looking at individual teams, it is pretty difficult to answer because everyone's not in the same position when it comes to rank. If you're really high up in the ranks, you might be less inclined to wildcard than someone who's lower ranked. You might have different players that are injured. If you've got a whole bunch of injuries, a whole bunch of big hitters you're not kind of interested in, then maybe you should wildcard. If you don't, then you can probably sit still for a bit longer. So from my point of view, I'm looking at my team, and I'm ranked like 770k or something, and I'm recording this on Tuesday. By the time it goes out, the Liverpool second game won't have even started yet. But by the time you watch it, it might have. And if Mo Salah goes crazy, that's going to hurt my rank even more, especially with Mane confirmed out. So I'm looking at my team. It's ranked really low, but there's not really too many players that I'd want to change right now. And I've kind of looked on Fantasy Football Scout. They've got a season ticker which shows the best fixtures coming up. And I've had a look at that, and the next kind of 5 weeks, the best teams coming up are Sheffield United, so I already have Lundstrom. He might lose his place, but I'm not going to probably know that until Game Week 25 begins and we see the lineup there. I don't have Henderson in goal. He's potentially a good option, but I've got McCarthy, so I'm not too worried about that one either. So I feel like I've kind of got Sheffield United covered. Don't necessarily want any of their forwards. Maybe Fleck, but he's not really a priority for me right now. Then you've got Liverpool. We've all got triple Liverpool anyway. No point in even talking about that. Newcastle, maybe if I had a space for another defender. Lascelles at 4.2 million. Matt Ritchie as a punt. But probably not too many players I want to go for there. Same with Palace. I've got Kelly. He might lose his place. There's no one really standing out there I don't already own. Southampton, like I said, I've already got McCarthy and Ings. Brighton, I have more pay, and I probably don't even want him, to be honest. And then Arsenal got pretty good fixtures, and I do quite like the idea of bringing Aubameyang in, but I'm going to talk about that more later on in the video. So there's a few players I might want to bring in, but not a huge amount, and probably not enough to wildcard right now. Another thing to consider, which I kind of already mentioned, is what's the state of your current team. I don't think you necessarily have to have a team full of injuries. At the end of the day, we manage our team so that they're not or that they're in a good state. So the chance of you having kind of 4 to 5 injuries plus other players you want to get rid of is actually very unlikely to happen. So if you've got kind of 4 big hitters that you're not happy with and you want to change them for a different set of 4 hitters which you think are going to absolutely smash it over the next 4 to 5 weeks, that could be reason enough to do it. After all, those are the kind of players that you expect to get the majority of your points from. Obviously, the benefit to holding it is we've got later double game weeks in the season. So double game week will probably come in game week 34 and 37. That could change, but we don't know yet. So preparing for them using things like your bench boost, maybe even your triple captainship if you've not already used it, and stuff like that could help. And obviously, triple captain doesn't really matter if you've got a wild card, but bench boost in particular can be used to set it up. But obviously, on the flip side of that, game week 34 and 37, if you're saving wildcards to be used for those weeks, that doesn't leave you much time to get many more points going on for the rest of the season. So I'm struggling right now, and I'm probably still not looking to wildcards. So I just don't think there's enough changes I want to make right now. But it's again, by the time this video comes out, and before game week 25, we'll know who's in the Carabao Cup final. So that might help your decision because we'll know who's going to blank in game week 28. Obviously, it looks like Leicester and Man City might go through. And if that happens, then obviously both those teams will blank, as well as Arsenal and Norwich. So you won't necessarily want a huge amount of players from there. And obviously, if you wildcard now, you've got to take that into consideration as well. But you will have that info before Game Week 25 finishes. So it's not the end of the world. I'm not necessarily looking at saving it right up until Game Week 34 and 37, because I do think it's going to be too late unless I can turn my rank around before that. And I just don't think I can. So Game Week 29 might be a better option. There's a few more bigger teams They've got nice fixtures around then for kind of the preceding or the following, 4 or 5. So you got Arsenal again, Leicester, Wolves, obviously Jimenez, Traore looking good. Chelsea potentially could be some options then. Spurs as well, maybe Son, and obviously still Liverpool as well. So game week 29 might be a better time to use it potentially. But obviously, like I said, it all depends on your team. So have a think about the state you're in, the players you want to bring in, how many changes you'd make, how you're going to plan for double game weeks coming later on in the season, and then take it from there. So this is the time of the year, whether you hate it or like it or not, where we're going to talk about blanks and double game weeks quite a bit. And obviously a lot of people are already looking at it because game week 28, like I said, will be a blank game week. And basically, if you don't know, that means that there'll be a couple of teams, 4 teams to be precise, who will not play fixtures in that week. So if you've got players from those teams, they'll just blank. And obviously, if you've got like kind of 5 or 6 players from those teams, then you'll only be playing with kind of 4 or 5 players in your actual 11. So you kind of maybe got to do a bit of planning around that. For game week 28, basically the blanks will be based on the Carabao Cup final. So whoever gets through to them will blank, plus obviously their opponents for that week as well, because they'll have no one to play against. Now, at the time I'm recording this, I'm recording it on Tuesday, so I don't know who is going to be in that. Leicester are playing tonight, I think, and then Man City, Man United are playing on Wednesday night. So potentially by the time you watch this, we'll know. Now, the chances are, like I said earlier, it'll be Leicester versus Man City. I think Leicester will get one over on Villa. And I just don't see how Man United are going to turn that around against Man City. So it's probably going to be another good opportunity for Pep to pick up another trophy there. Obviously, Villa might go through, but like I said, I don't know at this point in time. If City go through, then they will blank, and so will Arsenal, because that's their opponent. So obviously, if you're thinking about bringing Aubameyang in, keep that in mind. In Leicester go through, it's them and Norwich, and if Villa go through, it's them and Sheffield United. So obviously, if you're loaded up on like Henderson, Lundstram, and Sheffield United players, you probably don't want Aston Villa winning. But you never know. I think that game is obviously a lot tighter than the Man United Man City game. So if United go through, they're going to blank, and so will Everton. But I really don't think that's likely at this point. But you never know. So it's hard to say exactly what to do right now, because obviously we don't know who's blanking. But general kind of tips is don't panic too much. Everyone's obviously in the same boat, especially like if Leicester miss out. A lot of us are still carrying 2 or 3 players. Man City, there's De Bruyne to think about as well. So if I think about my team right now, and I base it on Leicester and Man City going through, then I got 4 players that will miss out: Soyuncu, Maddison, Vardy, and Kevin De Bruyne as well. And obviously, it kind of locks me out from going for maybe an Arsenal player as well, because they're going to get rotated as well. So I don't think you don't necessarily need to panic and go nuts transferring these players out. But I would just keep it in mind when thinking about future transfers. You've got a transfer for game week 25, another one for 26, another one for 27, and then one going into the 28 blank. So that's 4 transfers between now and then. So if I look at my team, for example, when we talk about Mane in a minute, I might sell him to Salah. So that's 1 transfer used already. I've thought about Vardy to Aubameyang, which again I'll talk about in a minute, but that means Aubameyang will be blanking as well. So I probably don't necessarily want to do that. And obviously in game week 28, you could use a free hit if you wanted to, although there will be another blank game week probably in game week 31, which is probably more useful for. And you can of course bench those players. If you've got a decent bench, cheap defenders like Lundstram, Rico, Lascelles, or whoever it might be, they can obviously come in and play as well. And like I said, everyone's in the same boat. So the best thing to do, not panic, just think about future transfers. But the one thing to do, which I think I always fall victim to every single year, is don't just think about the blanks. If there's a player over the next 3 weeks you think will do well, and it could be Aubameyang, maybe you think he'll get enough points to warrant bringing him in for 3 weeks and then transferring out or benching him, then do it. Don't completely ignore all the other game weeks in between just for this one blank game week that's going to happen. Keep or sell Mane. So that's how it was framed to me this morning, Tuesday morning. But it's gone 1 o'clock now, and Klopp has had his press conference, and he's now confirmed out for West Ham, which is absolutely awful. I don't want to rant and moan about it too much, but obviously for those of us that triple captain him, that really, really hurts. Not much we can do about it now. He's going to miss that West Ham game. Klopp's also said he's probably going to miss the Southampton game. He did kind of mention 3 games at the end of the press conference as well. So it almost seems like he's definitely going to miss the Southampton game. And obviously it is quite a quick turnaround between the West Ham and Southampton game as well. So it looks like he's going to be out. I think it kind of depends on the situation you're in. So my situation is I have triple Liverpool, I have double defence and Mane. So it seems like a really easy move just to switch Mane to Salah. I want pretty much a kind of set and forget Liverpool captain over the next 5 weeks. Not necessarily every single week, but for most weeks their fixtures are really good. So that will now be Mo Salah instead of Mane. There's always the risk, of course, that it's longer than Southampton. We don't know for sure that he's going to be back in what would then be game week 26. He's just too much money, I think, to have rotting away on your bench. Now, it's slightly different if you've got kind of one defender and two attackers, I think, especially if one of those attackers is already Salah. So if you've got a Salah and Mane double up, then you could just bench Mane for this week against Southampton. Obviously, there's nothing you can do about the West Ham game anyway, and then hope he's back the following week if you want to stick to that strategy. I think if you've got a decent bench option for this week and you've got Salah to captain, if you think he's the best captain option, then you could just keep him. I think if you've only got two defenders and Mane, or if you've got Mane and Salah, and you're not happy with your bench, and you don't want to, you don't want to bench him for 1 week, especially with the possibility that he may miss out in game week 26 as well, then I think it's time to sell. It's a bit unfortunate because obviously these are the times when their fixtures are so good. There's probably other options out there, and again, it's going to be difficult to say exactly who to bring in because it depends who you haven't got. There's like Pepe as a punt for Arsenal, but will he even play? Mahrez you could go for at Man City, but it's Spurs away this week. So that's one of the reasons I think benching him might not be the worst idea. But for those of you like me who've only got one attacker, going to Salah as a straight up swap option pretty much. I think there's a slight price difference, but not too much. It just seems like the ideal transfer and the easy one to make this week. So that's where I'll be going, and then probably handing captaincy to Salah as well. And then last kind of point is Vardy to Aubameyang. So I think a few people getting frustrated with Vardy and maybe looking at Aubameyang as well. So I've actually written an article which should be up by the time this video is out for Fantasy Football Scout, literally on this topic. So if you want kind of members area stats and stuff like that, make sure to go and read that because it's completely unlocked this week. To put it briefly, they're both in a situation where they could miss game week 28. Again, I don't know, but they probably will. And they've both got good fixtures from game week 29. The key difference is that Aubameyang has better fixtures from now until game week 27 than Vardy does. So Vardy's fixtures are pretty tricky, and obviously he hasn't scored since game week 18. I do think there's a good bit of context behind that. The Liverpool game was tough. Next two games were missed through injury, an assist versus Southampton, a penalty miss versus Burnley, and I think his penalty record is something like 17 scored out of 21. So his record's usually pretty good. So if he converted that, we probably wouldn't even be worried about him. And obviously then he missed out most of the minutes in the last game through injury. So a bit frustrating how he's been since game week 18, but there's quite a bit of context around that. Indeed, he's back as well. If you look at his underlying stats for kind of tackles and interceptions and stuff like that, he's really key to that Leicester team. So now he's back, they're going to win back the ball more often, they're going to be able to transition to attack more often. The key thing really is how many more points do you think Aubameyang is going to score over the next three versus Vardy? I think the fixtures are pretty good for Aubameyang. His goal involvement for Arsenal is like 52%, so if they do score, he's very likely to be involved. Obviously, he has penalties as well. I also looked at kind of, because I know a lot of people don't like the fact that he sometimes plays on the wing instead of playing as a central forward. His goal record this season from playing on the wing is still pretty good as well. In fact, percentage-wise, although he's played less games, so it's a smaller sample size, but percentage-wise, it's actually higher than when he plays centre forward as well. But like I said, he has played more games at centre forward, so it's probably evening out a little bit there. So I kind of like the transfer, and obviously if they're going to both blank anyway in game week 28, and if you're going to bench them, then, if you're going to own Vardy and you're going to bench him in game week 28, then you could do the same with Aubameyang. And then from game week 29 onwards, they've both got good fixtures as well. You've got to take into account the price difference. Aubameyang's 0.8 million more. But I do like him as an option. I'm tempted to do it. There's a part of me that just thinks Chelsea at home is not that bad for Leicester, especially with Ndidi back. And then they play Wolves and Man City, and they're going to be tough games. But Vardy scored in the reverse fixture, so I don't see any reason why he couldn't do that again. I think the City defence has been there to be kind of gotten at, but Laporte is back as well, so that's going to make it even more trickier. So it's a real tough one. I think if you want a bit of a differential, if you're kind of like me and in the dark depths of less than 500k rank, then maybe it's time to do it. But I don't think Vardy's a must-sell, and I do think this kind of goal drought, if you want to call it that, isn't going to continue for much longer. I got to be honest, I really don't think there's too much to discuss about captaincy this week. I know I say that every week, and I say this bit will be short, and then it's not. But yeah, if I look at that, I think most people, they probably don't own Aubameyang. I think if you want to go for a massive differential and you do own one of the Arsenal attackers, whether that's Aubameyang or not, then in the last kind of 4 weeks, I think Burnley have conceded the most shots in the box. Now, they have had a pretty tough fixture run, but obviously Arsenal is not an easy fixture. So there could be definitely points there as a bit of a punt if you do own Aubameyang, maybe even Lacazette or whoever it might be. Spurs versus Man City, I just think Spurs have not looked great recently. and they're going to struggle against Man City. And I do think we saw Mourinho employ quite a defensive strategy, as we know he can do, against Liverpool, which worked out pretty well. So I would not be surprised if we see something similar against Man City, maybe try and catch them on the counter. As soon as they nick a goal, maybe just try and defend that lead. But I just don't see a huge amount of goals for Spurs in that game. And obviously for Man City, if Spurs do try and defend and they do a good job of it, then potentially it's going to be tough for the likes of De Bruyne and Aguero to do well. But if they can nick an early goal, I just think the floodgates could open. We could see another 2 or 3 goals for Man City against Spurs. So that could be a good captaincy option, but I think the match itself will put me off, especially if Mourinho goes full defensive mode. Leicester versus Chelsea we just talked about. Obviously, a lot of what I've said about Vardy relies on him being fit for game week 25. It sounds like he should be. It sounds like he's probably going to play some part in the Carabao Cup, if not start. Again, don't know because I've not watched the game yet. It's not on by the time I've recorded this, but you'll know more by the time you watch it. So he could be a good option against Chelsea, but again, it's not really a game that I foresee too many goals in. I think Liverpool versus Southampton is the best option for a captaincy this week. Now, Southampton defensive stats have been pretty good recently. Then they conceded quite a few to Wolves, but did keep a clean sheet against Palace. So it's hard to know what to kind of make of them. I think Liverpool are so good, they're going to score in this game. With Mane out, it's going to fall to Salah. Could we maybe see Salah play as the central striker? Firmino just in behind, Origi on one side, whoever else on the other side potentially. I don't know, but if he does, he's got a very good kind of record playing as a striker. If Milner's still out, I don't think he's been training today either, then he'll have penalties as well. So I do think that game's good. I think there's a chance they get a clean sheet there as well, even with Danny Ings obviously in such good form. So potentially captaining a Liverpool defender could be good too. Obviously Trent's probably the one to go for, but I think Salah for me is the standout this week. It's why I want to do the Mane to Salah transfer. I'm not even going to give that a second of thought, to be honest. And I just think the other games are looking tricky this week, so I'm not sure if I would probably captain someone else. I've got De Bruyne, Vardy, and maybe Aubameyang this week, but then obviously I wouldn't have Vardy, and they're just not really kind of pulling like to me as a captaincy option, whereas Salah just seems like the standout and the obvious choice this week. So that's probably where I'll be putting my money. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you're new around here, hit that notification bell as well. I'll have another stream at 9 PM on Thursday evening if you want to come in for kind of a live Q&A discussion type thing. If you've got any comments about what I've said, if you've got any other thoughts or questions, leave a comment below and I'll try and look and get back to as many of them as I can. And last thing, if you haven't already checked out OneFootball, it's completely free. Link in the description below, or just search OneFootball on the Android, iOS stores, and I will catch you next time. Cheers all.